Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So, I hope everyone is doing okay. Jimmy Dore is scheduled to be on in 23 minutes. So, of course, this one is going to have to be relatively quick, and I am going to keep this one relatively quick. And I know people joke me when I say that, because some of those shows have gone like 3 hours. But this one has a upper limit on it because it has to have an upper limit on it. If you guys enjoy what I'm putting down, please feel free to not sign anything. Share, like, and subscribe. And of course, you can always support the Patreon or Super Chat. So, someone brought it to my attention, and I couldn't find the tweet because I wanted to thank the person for bringing it to my attention, that there were protests outside of the Left Forum 2018. They were protesting because of Syria. I haven't watched the person's entire video. I only watched up to the point of the protest because I didn't care what else came after it, because however well-meaning, they are grossly and profoundly misguided. Their understanding of history and political affairs are grossly, let's just say this way, I'm not going to say it bad. They're grossly misguided if you are actually out there saying that you support Syria and you're protesting lefties. You're protesting lefties. And I know you're protesting some lefties because you think that our disposition in this standpoint is somehow anti-Syria. That is profoundly misguided. That is ridiculous with a jetpack. There is no way that you come away, well, I can't say no way, clearly you did, looking at somebody on the left and the dispositions that the majority of lefties have from the standpoint of being anti-left, and think that we're anti-Syria. However well-meaning, you are extraordinarily, profoundly misguided. There are things that apparently we know that you don't. The United States, at one point, you can make an honest case that there was an uprising in Syria, that people were sick of the Bashar al-Assad's government. Sick of it. Wanted it to change. Fucking A. They may get mad. They may create this kind of pushbacks, protests, all that stuff. But at some point, you have to come to the honest realization that it's not just Syria. Qatar, Israel, the United States, the UK, France have all been instigating themselves into the affairs of that nation. Certainly, you understand that the people who we've been giving weapons and munitions to have not just been regular Syrians who were pissed off at the Assad government. Some of these people were bloodthirsty terrorists. Have you listened to the people who were living under the terrorist regimes? I think you should listen to those people. Do you know what is going to take place with Christians in those nations? I've known Christians in Muslim nations. Do you know what's going to take place with those Christians in those nations the moment that those terrorists took hold? Newsflash, the people who are going to take power in that situation are going to be monsters. They're going to be utter monsters. Monsters who we've been supporting and we've been assisting and we've been giving weapons and munitions to because the United States government want Assad out that seat. I am all for the people of Syria having self-determination. Having the United States, Israel, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, having those forces that are external from that nation making determinations about that nation, I am not for. And if you're out there protesting, that is essentially what you are for. Do you remember what happened to Iraq? What happened to the oil in Iraq? Let's take a history lesson, just for a short point, and I'll keep this video quick. This is Reuters. Iraq owes much of that growth to the likes of BP, Exxon Mobil, Lukoil, Eni, Total, and Royal Dutch Shell, which oversaw the redevelopment of its oil fields after the United States blew that country to smithereens, saying that they had weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Did they have weapons of mass destruction in Iraq or not? Did they or not? Go back further. When Iran was toppled, do you remember Iran actually did have a secular government, a thriving government? Mossadegh, on the cover of Time magazine. I can see it in my head. When they made the determination that they wanted to start dealing with their oil revenue in a different way, that they wanted to renegotiate with the contracts of BP. What happened to Iran in that scenario? Iran was undermined by protests, that those protests were fomented by Britain working with the CIA to essentially undermine that government and put somebody in a brutal Shah that was to our liking. Because he wasn't going to negotiate the contracts. He was going to get magnificently wealthy. And he was going to say, thank you for the money that you guys are giving. And he was going to keep it ticking along. They loved most of that. I mean, they loved the guy who they put in, because the Shah was not going to work in the benefit of the people of that country. The people of that country, in a democratic way, was usurped. Utterly usurped. Oil interests. Protests. Riots. People are sick of it. When they took power back and they ended up putting in the Ayatollah, that was in reaction to what the United States did. The United States has consistently talked about bombing and attacking that country. Mind you, we were the one that attacked them. We were the ones that undermined their government. And we often never acknowledge it and never admit it. And people are born into a society as the way the society is, not necessarily knowing the historical context of the countries and the feuds that they get into. Then you had Iraq. What happened to Libya? We were told that there were humanitarian reasons for going into Libya. We find out, looking through WikiLeaks, Hillary Clinton helped topple Gaddafi while France and UK fought over Libya's oil and gold. Supposedly, we were to believe that Gaddafi was this bloodthirsty maniac, and he might have been, that Gaddafi was going to murder and go on a rampage, murdering and killing his people. So we, the Western powers, had to get involved and murder a bunch of people to prevent Gaddafi from killing a bunch of people. Murdering by an American bullet or by an American bomb is a hell of a lot better than getting your head chopped off. Because if it's by a bullet or bomb, it creates a job back home. It's a win-win. Hillary Clinton's chuckling and giggling when Gaddafi was sodomized with a machete. So Gaddafi may have been a bad guy, but look at what you did. That country now has open-air slave markets based on the behavior of the West with regards to assisting the toppling of that country. Is that to the betterment of the Libyan people or not? Did you assist the Libyan people, regardless of your intentions? Did you assist the Libyan people in destroying that country and turning that country to a hellhole? What about this? Wesley Clark. Listen to what Wesley Clark is saying he stumbled onto.
About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who had used to work for me. And one of the generals called me in. He said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, "No." He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." So I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda?" He said, No. He says, "There's nothing new that way. They've just made the decision to go to war with Iraq." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we've got a good military and we can take down governments." And he said, "I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail." So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, and he said, I just got this down from upstairs," meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran."
I understand that when people are hurting and when there's somebody who's doing bad things, you want to do something about it. Fair enough. I get that perspective. There is a such thing, however, as action and consequences. And the bombs that get dropped, the people who get shot, is going to be on everybody. You have no magic bombs where you're only going to hit certain people. You are going to kill and murder a lot of people. The anti-war stanciness is not because you love Assad. It's not because you love Vladimir Putin. It's not because you love the Ayatollah. None of that has to be the case. It has everything to do with we don't make it better. I can look at recent history. I can look at past history. We don't make it better. In fact is, oftentimes we do these things with bad intent. It's something that we want out of this process, not because we're going to actually help anybody. It's bad intent. I am all for the people of Syria, making a determination for the people of Syria. I am not, full stop, I am not for the United States, Israel, Qatar, Turkey, essentially getting their way and making things the way they want it to be in Syria. Nor would I be behind the United States being a vehicle for those powers in order to do that. Don't have to like Assad at all. What I do like is this thing of freedom of a nation state to make a determination to say, no, we don't need to be in other people's affairs in this way. Your protest is nonsense. It's nonsense with a jetpack. It's nonsense with a jetpack. This is utterly ridiculous. You're protesting the people who are actually for the people of Syria. If we are actually for the people of Syria because we don't want to go in and we have previous experience, we can look back in time and say all of these things were failures. All of these things ended up killing a lot of people. What about you? Your humanitarian response from the standpoint of Syria is going to get a lot of people murdered. The only disposition that can be in place for the people of Syria is to support the people of Syria, not going in and blowing the shit out of hell. From our standpoint, that support is best by leaving it be. By leaving it be. And here's a newsflash. That churning of that war has been going on, has been propagated in large part because of our influence in those affairs of trying to get Bashar out that seat. If we would have not gotten involved, that war would have been over with a long time ago. It might not even become a war at all. I'll leave it here. I saw this protest talking about pro-Assadists on the left. This is utter nonsense. This is utter nonsense. I didn't even look at the video. The name, the title itself, and seeing the protest itself. And I'm not, by the way, I'm not responding to the video. I'm responding to the protests that were outside the left forum. And God knows I wish I would have been sober that day to go out, because I would have loved it. I felt miserable after a night of drinks, so I didn't get the chance to go to the left forum that next day. I would have loved to have a conversation with these people. I would have loved to. So I'll leave this here because Jimmy Dore is supposed to be here in 10 minutes. I haven't heard from him, but hopefully he's still coming on, and so I will leave it here. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support the patron. All things being equal, Jimmy Dore will be here in 10 minutes. Thanks, guys.